So I used to love scuba diving. It's about as close as I've ever got to being out in outer space. The feeling of floating, the feeling of being weightless is pretty surreal. It's just a phenomenal experience. I'd highly recommend it for anybody who hasn't tried it. I used to, so I learned to scuba dive in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the waters out there, but they're pretty cold. And so cold water requires specialized equipment. And you have an option of either a wetsuit or a dry suit, one being you're wet and the other being that you're dry. And so with dry suits, you have two options. Again, there's like a bag suit in which you wear like layers underneath, and then the others is like neoprene, and there are different types of like zippers and front or back. And anyways, so I had a dry suit that had a back zipper, which means that you can't get into it or get out of it by yourself. Keep that in mind. So I was diving in on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and I was just randomly at this dive shop, and I ran into these two guys, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna go dive at this dive site, and there's a wreck there, there's a barge," and I was like, "Awesome, can I join?" And they're like, "Sure." And I was like, "Great." And it turns out it was like right where I just came from off of this ferry landing, and it was like 15 minutes up the road, and so I was like, "Great." And so we went up there and we did the dive. It was great. It was nice. Low visibility. It was cold. Yeah, pretty typical for Northwest conditions. But so anyhow, we got out and it was raining. And well, when you're in a dry suit and it's raining outside, it's not a big deal. But getting out of the dry suit in the rain is no fun. And so, anyways, they were about to go off onto this other dive. And they're like, "Hey, do you want us to unzip you before we go?" And I was like, No, it's only 15 minutes back to Victoria. I'll be just fine. And bad. So anyways, I was like, okay, they took off, and I'm still in my dry suit, and it's raining, it's pouring, and I had to get back down to Victoria. I was couch surfing down there, and I was going to stay with this gentleman who was hosting me. And so I got back onto the highway to head into Victoria and ran right into traffic. And so in a cab with bad ventilation and high humidity, because I'm all wet and everything, my windows are like fogging up. I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm basically choking because a dry suit has a really, really tight neck seal, and because you don't want to get water in. And so I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm like basically choking because you're supposed to be horizontal with the dry suit on, not sitting. And so I'm like sitting there in traffic, I'm freaking out, and I'm like, all right, I gotta get out of this dry suit. I have to pee. I can't see where I'm going. It's dark, and I was like, all right, I don't even know where this guy lives, and I had the brilliant idea to get all the information for his house on my computer. And well, of course, I opened up my computer, and Windows had decided to self-update, so I had no information as to where this guy lived. And so I'm in traffic. I don't know where I'm going. It's dark. I can't breathe. And now I'm like really fucked. And so by the grace of God, I just barely remembered where this guy lived. And I don't know how I did it, but I found my way to this dude's house. And and so I get there. It's dark and it's raining. It's like this duplex, and I'm like, all right, I think this is the right one. That looks to be the address. And so I look in, and obviously there's nobody there. It's dark. There's no lights on. But the duplex the other side was lit, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna knock on this door, and hopefully there's somebody here. And so I knock on the door, and mind you, I'm standing in this dry suit and full scuba garb and like this rain hat and stuff, and like. And so this gentleman in a wheelchair opens the door, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm looking for so and so." He's like, "Oh yes, yeah. Well, I think I saw him leave about half an hour ago. He's probably on his way back." And I was like, "Great." And he was like, "Would you like to call him?" And I was like, "Yes, I would really love that. But would you mind doing me a favor? Would you mind unzipping my dry suit for me? And he was like, let me call my wife real quickly. And so he called his wife, and his wife came in, and she unzipped my back zipper, and I was just like, oh my God, thank you so much. And it was looking back on this experience, it was pretty ridiculous. And if anybody ever has the opportunity to have somebody unzip your dry suit, I would definitely recommend it, because being in that situation is no fun. So, all right.